All right, we said we were going to do it, and I've got you covered today. We're talking the 9 highest upside Gophers that are younger in the program. Who is the future that is bright for this Golden Gophers?
Hey, you are Locked On Golden Gophers.
No matter what we're going to do here, we're just going to keep rowing.
Your daily podcast on the Minnesota Golden Gophers.
However it turns out, we're just going to keep rowing.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
We're just going to keep rowing, and keep rowing.
What's up, y'all? We are listening to Locked On Golden Gophers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Kane Rob, host of the podcast, former collegiate football video coordinator and recruiting assistant, here to talk Golden Gophers with you each and every day of the week, Monday through Friday. And today we're doing a top 9. This one is going to be the top 9 highest upside younger Gophers, the future Gophers with the highest upside. We're talking about who is the face of this program moving forward and who to look forward to over the next few years. So what came into factor for this, my only caveat with these players, is that it cannot be older than redshirt sophomores heading into the 2024 years. So that means basically your 22 class, your 23 class, your 24 class. The most recent classes, who has the highest upside, who could potentially be the future faces of this Gophers program with Coach Fleck and staff. That's where we're diving into. If you like this idea, you want a different top 9 for us to consider as we move forward in this offseason, let me know in the comments and I will get those generated for future shows for you as well. So let's jump into the top 9 and I will get that going on a banner for you at the bottom if you're watching over on YouTube. So be sure to hit subscribe while you're over there and like so others can follow. Now let's hit it with the first one. And I already left it up there. We're going to leave it on the screen. But before we get to that first one, in Brett Carroll, who comes in at number 9 for me, I'm going to tell you my honorable mentions in this category. Now, the first honorable mention, I made sure I wanted to get on this list. He could have a role in this upcoming season. Maybe he moves into the center spot. Maybe he moves to a different position and somebody kicks in. But I think Ashton Beers is a name to keep in mind for the Gophers moving forward. Great depth for the Gophers. He was with the 2s on the O-line last year. He's been getting good practice reps with this team, and I think he is a player that this staff loves and has loved the development they've seen from him thus far. Another player on the honorable mentions, Kerry Brown. He showed out in the last 2 games of the season, really stepped up at the safety position in for Darius Green, and I think he can make a case to start this season. I think there's a possibility there. Maybe Craig McDonald can move into a safety role as well. Darius Green's still in there, but I think he has a good shot. I think if he wins that job, he could easily find himself in that top 9 that we're talking about, but I'm not sure who's going to take over that spot there. So I think he's an honorable mention for me. And then the other 2 honorable mentions I have is TJ McWilliams, wide receiver. I think he can work into the slot, and I think he could be a very good stud receiver for this Minnesota team if they can get the pass game more incorporated. And finally, Mason Carrier, because the Gophers always find production at the linebacker position. That being said, you've still got Cody Lindenberg, Maverick Barowski, Devin Williams, a lot of guys with multiple years of eligibility left. So it might be a few years until he can really get some consideration in there. So I've got him as an honorable mention. Now, like I said, we've got number 9. It's on the bottom of the screen. That is Brett Carroll, future center for the Gophers. I think with the bend and the athleticism that Brett has, he has the skill set to carry over and be a very great offensive lineman, center, Big Ten type player, all conference type of player for the Big Ten if it starts to click and he really develops with Coach Callahan. Now you're talking about a guy who was an elite wrestler, state champion, an elite thrower, state champion, and you have that skill set and that mentality on top of football being his first love. He's going to put in the work. He's going to get it done. And I think the thing I love about him the most in the chats that I have had with him is his understanding and his field IQ and his realization of what his strengths are, what his weaknesses are, and how he can get better. I think he's going to be a great player who can command the offensive line as he gets more developed and more confident in his abilities growing here with Minnesota. But he knew what he was looking for in his recruiting process, and Minnesota checked those boxes. So I am really excited for him. I think he is going to be a future staple on this offensive line. And I think he has the size and the ability. So I'm really looking forward to his development here at Minnesota with Coach Callahan at the helm of that grouping. Now, he was an All-American Bowl player, played center in high school, so he has good experience that he can carry over as he steps into the collegiate level. So it's an exciting name at number 9 for me, and Brett Carroll. Now, kicking it over to number 8, we've got none other than Maverick Barowski. Now, some might look at this list and be like, whoa, how'd he only come in at 8? And you know what? I think it's because he's behind Cody Lindenberg in line. Now, he's going to have some time where they split on the field and share snaps together, but he probably should be higher on the list due to the production we have seen thus far. But there was still a learning process with Maverick Barowski this year, being kind of thrown into the deep water, seeing if he could swim. And you know what? He floated at times. There were still some things that he had missed tackles along the way. Coverage wasn't always great. But overall, I think he showed the flashes that he can be a very productive player for this Minnesota team. We'll see how he incorporates with Coach Heatherman as the DC and how much of an impact that has. But if he clicks together, he could definitely finish higher on this list. Last year, he had 53 tackles, 1 sack, and 2 PBUs over 9 games. Now, he missed the final 3 games due to injury, and he missed the Illinois game. Now, he could be the future leader in this room behind Cody Lindenberg, but overall, if he cleans up the coverage hiccups and he really gets on top of the missed tackles, which he did start to clean up towards the end of the year, then I absolutely believe he could finish higher than the 8 that we have him at on this list. Now, coming in at number 7 for the highest upsided Gophers in the future years for this program, we've got none other than Drake Lindsay coming in at number 7, the quarterback. Now, the biggest thing for me is that this quarterback room isn't very deep, and we see quarterbacks transferring a lot over this new portal era. So I don't know what this looks like. I don't know if the Gophers bring in another transfer next year. If Max Brosmer balls out and they're found success with, do they bring in another guy to compete with Drake Lindsay who could maybe push him for another year or so? I don't know where that lies. And so that's why I have him a little bit lower on this highest upside, because we've seen the excitement. We've seen the trajectories that we've put on some of these younger quarterbacks. Looking at Ethan Calig-Manis, a lot of upside, a lot of potential, and a lot of hope, but it didn't pan out the way we were hoping. That being said, Drake Lindsay is a special player. Now, he had offers from Arkansas and Minnesota and then a couple other G5 schools as well. But I think the biggest thing you see with Drake Lindsay is his ability to adapt and his ability to improve. Now, he's already got the tangibles, the size, 6'5", 220 pounds, a super live arm that he can rip that thing. I mean, super long deep ball. But the biggest things that stood out to me in his high school years, especially the last 2, is accuracy. And then what he told me in an interview was that he was really looking to be more anticipatory with his throws in the senior year. And you see that on the film left and right. And he definitely took strides in that department. So you're looking at a guy over his last 2 years. He has had over 3,500 passing yards in both of those seasons. As a senior, it was 3,941, 69% completion, 54 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. Flipping to the junior year, 3,620 yards, 67% completion, 37 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. So that's an 89 to 7 or 6 interceptions touchdown to turnover ratio. That's impressive in its own right. But he has that size, like I said, and in the early work, he can work firsthand with Max Brosmer, pick his brain, learn about what he's looking at. And really, maybe he can start to ask those questions that Max has developed with working with guys like CJ Stroud, Jalen Hurts, Deshaun Watson, Justin Fields, Malik Willis, and so many others. If he can start to get those concepts and really add them into his own game and speed up his game and play at a Big Ten level, he definitely could be the future at the quarterback position for the Gophers. So I am looking forward to that. His anticipation throws were a strength and an asset for him in his senior year, and he could be a very, very exciting piece for the Gophers in the future, bright future. And he's all in on the program, and that's going to sit well with a lot of fans moving forward. He had opportunities where the home state was trying to bring him back in. Arkansas was making a final push. He locked in. He doubled down. He made the fans aware that he wants to be a Golden Gopher. So hopefully the Gophers fans will embrace him with that same love, and he comes out here and thrives when it is his time. But overall, I still need to see it on the field before I can move him any higher than 7 on this list. Now, we're going to kick it over to the top 6 4 through 6. And these are the guys that I would say are my guys. 3 through 6 are the guys that I'm just like, man, I've been touting their horn for a while now. And I think they're going to be special players in this program. So we're going to check them out coming up next. First, I want to talk to you about our friends over at FanDuel, because right now you can get buckets with your first bet at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any $5 winning bet. So you go out there and you put it on the money, you get it right. If you're betting on my Celtics, like I would like to do, that is where you're going to get those easy $5 win, and then you will get the $150 in bonus bets. So definitely check it out. If your bet wins, you're getting $150. Now, if you bet on all of your favorite NBA players and teams, you can look at quick bets, live same game parlays, exclusive props, and so much more. I'm always a guy who's going to go after the Celtics, but luckily the Minnesota Timberwolves are killing it right now too as the best team in the West. You could also go out there and look at the dunk contest champions, which you know is going to be Jaylen Brown. I'm putting it there right now. But go visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook of the NBA. All right, Gophers fans, so we are locking back in. We're going to the My Guys section of this top 9. 6 through 3, I would say, are the guys that I have just been touting left and right since they were on their way to Dinkytown. And the first one coming in at number 6 is none other than your boy, Greg Johnson. Now, Greg Johnson started as a true freshman in multiple games, played in multiple games, ended up not getting a red shirt because he played enough snaps and had a lot of value to this Gophers team. Now, there were some struggles at times. You could see he was getting his feet wet in the water and whatnot, but he showed some flashes. He showed some brilliance, and he showed that he will be a staple in this offensive line for years to come for the Golden Gophers. And now that he has had that experience, and something I always like to mention is that you have a guy who has played at that speed as a true freshman, and he knows what he needs to work on in this offseason. He knows what he needs to improve, get stronger, and how he can push himself to the next level to take that year 2 leap and find his best production heading into a new year. So Greg Johnson definitely could be a staple on the inside as a guard player. If the Gophers ever needed to kick him out to a tackle after your Urseries and your Carrolls and them leave, he probably could do that as well, but he's been on the left guard at many times. I think he's played a little bit of right guard. I think he is going to find a way to be a staple player for this Gophers offensive line. I think you pair him with some of these younger guys coming up, Ashton Beers, Quinn Carroll, Nathan Roy. You start to get those guys mixed in with him, and you're looking at the future studs of this Minnesota moving company on the O-line. So Greg Johnson comes in at number 6. Super excited for him and his future, especially after the little glimpses we got to see in true freshman season for him in 2023. Now, kicking it over to number 5. We're in the top 5 now, and I got to have my guy, Zaquan Bryan. Look, Coach Fleck told us in the 2023 signing day presser that Zaquan Bryan might be the most athletic player in the entire class. Now, that's a class with Darius Taylor. That's a class with Greg Johnson. That's a class with Kendrick Lanier. Those guys, athletic as all get out. Zaquan Bryan, 4-star player on 3. He was a wide receiver and a returner and a DB. And the wide receiver aspects that he brings to the field should only help him as he gets ramped up for this DB experience with the Golden Gophers. So you're talking about a guy who understands the instincts and what it takes, where he needs to be, the positioning of it all, and he'll be right there to break up those passes. But on top of that, I've seen it time and time again, not only from his high school film work, but also some of the flashes we saw against Bowling Green, where he ripped out against one of the best tight ends in the entire G5. He ripped it out on a 3rd and long that would have been a first down with Bowling Green driving, makes that PBU a huge play. He also stopped a touchdown later in that game as well. Zaquan Bryan put flashes on the tape in the very minimal time he was given as a true freshman last year, but he redshirt only played two games. So really, I am looking forward to what his upside is moving forward. Now, like I said, he was an all-state receiver, so he's super athletic. He has the speed to him. And I've talked with my guy, Daniel House, as well, and he is very excited, intrigued by Zaquan Bryan moving forward. So he comes in at number 5. I think he is the future Gophers cornerback as we continue to move forward. Now, moving it over to number 4, another guy that I've touted a lot on this show, and you'll probably hear me do it more this offseason, is Kenrick Lanier. Now, he was an All-American Bowl player in the class of 2023, a 4-star receiver on 247, and recent 4-star receivers in the Fleck era include Daniel Jackson, include Rashad Bateman, and I think that Kenrick Lanier can put his name into the conversation. He has the ability to follow a similar path as those two receivers. I truly believe he could be a number 1 receiver for this Gophers team, and I think we get some flashes of that from the first time here in 2024. I think his first snaps on the field in live game action are going to come in 2024. He's going to find a way into that rotation, and I think you're going to see promise from him that can make him into that wide receiver 1 category as your Daniel Jackson and others depart when they run out of eligibility. Now, I truly believe that we've seen some of the flashes in the spring game, in the fall camp sessions, and he really started to pick things up mentally. And that's a lot of things to throw at a true freshman, especially in the early enrollment period. But he seemed to really start to come together and click things together as the time went by. Now, you look at some of his high school film, you're looking at 665 receiving yards as a junior with 6 touchdowns, and you're like, all right. But then you look at his huge leap in senior year, doubled almost all of his stats across the board, 1,156 yards, 64 receptions, 12 touchdowns, flashes a lot of impressive ability as a true freshman in the limited opportunities that we could see him as media, and he was working with the twos throughout the year. So even with an extremely deep room, Chris Bell, Daniel Jackson, Elijah Spencer, Lemeke Brockington, the list goes on and on, Corey Crooms, he still made a way to get in with the twos and get valuable reps with the quarterbacks and whatnot. So he's going to be a name to definitely keep an eye on. Now, before we move to the top 3, like I said, 3 through 6 is kind of my guys. So you got one or more of those guys that I've been just absolutely showing love to. He's going to come in at number 3, but who is it? Can you take a guess? We're definitely going to have that coming for you after this word from our friends over at eBay Motors. So like I said, we got to talk to you about our friends over at eBay Motors, because passion, drive, and patience is what brings home the winning trophy, and it's also what keeps your ride or die vehicle alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. And if you're a speed person, a power person, a style person, it doesn't matter. eBay Motors has you covered. They've got exhaust kits, LED headlights, roof racks, superchargers, and so much more. If you're looking for something for your vehicle, you're definitely not doing yourself a service unless you go to eBay Motors. They have over 122 million. That's right, with an M, 122 million parts for your number 1 ride or die, and you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. But the best part of it all is that they have the eBay Guaranteed Fit, which means your part is guaranteed to fit your ride or your money back every single time. So with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. You can feel covered and definitely find all the parts you need at the prices you want. It's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home the dub. So eligible items only over at ebaymotors.com. Exclusions apply, and the eBay Guaranteed Fit is available to U.S. customers only. All right, Gophers fans, we're jumping in the top 3, and this is going to be a good one. Number 3 is my man, Anthony Smith. Now, Anthony Smith, edge rusher out on the end. He has all the talent, all the attributes, all the athleticism. He's been touted as the best hooper on the Gophers basketball team by multiple people for the past year and a half now. But what I love about Anthony Smith is he has that body type and athleticism to be an NFL type player. And there's a lot of scouts that have come to these practices, and Coach Fleck has mentioned it in a couple of the pressers that the scouts get their eyes on Anthony Smith and they're like, who's that guy? He's like, no. You got to wait a couple more years before you can come after him. That shows you how much he just stands out at these practices and in the sessions where other coaches, other scouts are getting looks at him and they're like, ooh, this is a guy we need to keep an eye on. And I think he is going to have a massive year for the Gophers in 2024. Now, many scouts have said, who is that guy? And there's a reason behind it, but he was a redshirt freshman last year, had 15 total tackles, 1 sack, and 2 forced fumbles. But the timeliness of that sack and the 2 forced fumbles were game-changing. In fact, it almost got Minnesota the seal on the Illinois game. And unfortunately, later on, the offense stalled and the defense couldn't hold off that final drive. But I think overall, Anthony Smith is a guy you definitely want to keep an eye on, because I think those numbers are only going to increase in 2024, but especially in 2025 if Ja Joyner and Danny Strigow are on the outs with their eligibility or taking shots at the NFL. So I believe that he has the highest upside of the entire defensive line, especially of the edge and end room, and even higher than Ja Joyner, who I have nothing but love for, who just came off a 7.5 sack season. And I think Anthony Smith could put together numbers that rival that or maybe even top it, just showing you how much of a beast this guy can be. So Anthony Smith comes in at number 3, which leaves us to our top 2 highest upside Gophers in the program moving forward. Number 2 is a name that you've heard a lot of this offseason, and you should be rightfully stoked. It is Koi Parrish, second highest rated recruit in Minnesota's recruiting history, and he absolutely balled out. He was in the All-American Bowl, and he earned the game MVP of that. He moved into the top 100 recruits in the entire country, coming in at number 72, the second best safety prospect in the whole country, staying home for the Gophers. And you would be absolutely crazy if you don't think that Coach Fleck and these defensive coaches are going to find a way to get him involved somewhat early or often in this season. Now, he is not an early enrollee player, so he's still going to have to catch up. He's still going to have to get the attitude matching with his brothers. I don't know what the culture is like from high school to the Gophers, but I'm sure there's slightly a culture shock no matter where you're coming. Arkansas, up north in Minnesota, come from the West Coast, the East Coast, it doesn't matter. There's going to be a little bit of a culture shock, and how do you fit and groove with your teammates? The quicker you do that and the quicker you pick up the playbook, the quicker you're going to make an impact on the field. Now, I do think Koi Parrish is going to have a big impact on this Gophers team, and he's going to find ways to contribute. I would not be surprised if he ends up eventually playing himself into a starting position, even as a true freshman. Now, there's a reason that Ohio State was after this guy and down to the wire with him all the way up till early signing day. He's a do-it-all athlete. He has freak athleticism. You've seen it in that All-American Bowl game where he had the diving interception, where he had a block punt, where he is just absolutely doing whatever his team needs and then some to help his team win the game. And that's, I guess, the best of the best with the high school level. And I think he's going to continue to do that trend moving into the collegiate level as well. You look at his last 2 seasons, junior year, 75 tackles, 2 sacks, 4 forced fumbles, 3 interceptions. And then you move to senior year, less tackles, that's okay. 57 tackles as a safety, 2 sacks, 1 forced fumble, 2 fumble recoveries. But he also had a fumble return touchdown, 4 interception return touchdowns, 5 interceptions total, multiple return touchdowns. Look, I think he has a chance to absolutely just do major things. I was going to say destroy in the Big Ten, but I'm going to give him some time to get to that level. But I do think he can be a massive impact player, especially with the departure of Tyler Nubin, who was the force in that secondary room. Now, yes, you have guys who have more experience in front of him. Darius Green, who started last year. Kerry Brown, who's been with the program for a year now. You've got on the other side, you've got Aiden Gooseby, who's worked in there. You've got Coleman Bryson, who is probably better in that more Tyler Nubin type role. But I think Koi Parrish is going to make a case for himself, and I would not be surprised to see him eventually take that role and run with it in 2024 and beyond. And then finally, we've got our number 1 highest upside Gopher on the team, and that's back-to-back number 1s on our top 9 lists. It's Darius Taylor. Extremely easiest choice here for me. He has already led the nation in rush yards per game in his true freshman year. On top of that, with a clean bill of health, Darius Taylor could be an NFL caliber running back after his time here in Dinkytown by a lot. I'm talking he could maybe put himself into the early day 2 type of guy, or if he continues to go on the trajectory we saw his freshman year and stay healthy for a full 2 seasons, get 2 seasons of that type of work, you're talking about a guy who could maybe sneak his name into the first round conversation. And that doesn't happen for very many running backs, but that's just how special Darius Taylor is. Now, this offense is committed to playing through him and around him. So I think that's going to be huge moving forward and give him the opportunity to fulfill that upside. Like I said, if the pass game opens up for this Gophers offense, it only makes it better for Darius Taylor. Now, yes, maybe that means some less touches for him, but his efficiency and the opportunities that he gets with those touches should be better because people can't stack the box. People can't play as close to the line of scrimmage. So he should be able to get bigger runs and bigger chunk yardage as well. So 5 games last season, he had more than 1 carry. 6 games played total, 5 games he had over 1 carry, and in 4 out of those 5 he had over 100 rushing yards. In 3 out of those 5 games he had over 190 rushing yards, and in 1 of those 5 games where he had more than 1 carry, he had over 200 rushing yards. I don't think anyone will have any arguments here. That's my top 9. If you have any other top 9s you want to hear, whether it be all of Gopher sports, whether it be Hoopers and their futures moving forward, whatever you want to hear, drop it in the comments below and we'll make sure to get that on a future episode. But tomorrow we're going to talk a little bit of Gophers hoops. We're going to talk about the guys who got invited to the NFL Combine, and we're going to talk about a Gopher alum, Rashad Bateman, and why next year could be the best year for him. I'll see you then. Row the boat, Sky Go Gophers. And as always, don't forget to subscribe.